The morning after the plane crash that killed Richie Valance, Buddy Holly, and the Big Bopper, investigators expected the worst. But when they arrived at the crash, they immediately made a chilling discovery that no one could prepare for. 17-year-old Richie Valance had a huge singing career ahead of him, until a simple coin toss brought it to a tragic end. His singing career lasted only 8 months, but in that short time, he achieved music legend status. Despite the fear of flying that had plagued him since he was a child, he chose to board a small plane during a frigid Midwest snowstorm. Richie Valance wouldn't make it out of that plane alive. But what led him to that fateful moment? Valance was born Richard Stephen Valenzuela on May 13, 1941 in the San Fernando Valley. His parents were immigrants from Mexico who made their money picking fruit. He lived with 2 younger sisters and 2 half-brothers, but the home wasn't just full of people. The Valenzuela home was also full of music. There was traditional mariachi music from their native Mexico, but the family also enjoyed flamenco and R&B. Back then, there was no rock and roll. Even as a toddler, Valance was doing something incredible. At a very young age, he was already making his own music. When his parents recognized this, Dad suggested he try the guitar. The only problem? Valance was left-handed, but had a right-handed guitar. It didn't matter. He was so determined to learn that he went against nature and learned to play with his right. Then he taught himself to play the drums. In a few years, Valance had done enough learning. He was now ready to be a star. At first, Valance's performances were just for his friends, but before long he received an offer. This was to join a local band called the Silhouettes. Valance soon earned a reputation as a talented musician around the San Fernando Valley. A high school student was really taken with Valance's talent, and they just had to tell Bob Keane, a producer from Delphi Records. While describing this talented young musician they went to school with, the student referred to Valance by a nickname that really caught Keane's attention. Kids in the San Fernando Valley had taken to calling Valance the Little Richard of San Fernando. Now, Bob Keane was an important man. He wasn't in the habit of taking tips from high school students, but Valance's nickname intrigued him. Keane decided to see for himself and attended a weekend matinee at a movie theater with Valance on the ticket. Valance didn't know it, but that show was going to change his life forever and start a ticking clock. After seeing Valance perform just once, Keane invited him directly to his home. As it turned out, Keane had a little recording studio right there in his basement. Valance did a short audition, and that was enough. Keane signed Valance onto his record label. It was in that basement studio that the performer and producer got down to work. What they created would go down in rock and roll history. The first song Valance and Keane created was Come On, Let's Go, and it got its name from an unusual source. Apparently, Valance's mom was fond of the line. She often used it when the family was running late. Valance used his mother's words to pay a little tribute to her. Valance and Keane were very happy with Come On, Let's Go, and Keane wasn't going to waste any time releasing it. But first, he had one problem to clear up. It was his new star's name. At this time, Valance was still going by Richard Valenzuela, which the producer felt was too Hispanic for an American audience. Valance understood why he had to change his last name, but Keane even had a problem with his first name. According to Keane, there were too many other Richards in the music industry, Little Richard being one of them, and he wanted Valance to seem fresh. From this came Richie Valance, and a star was about to be born. Just days after Valance and Keane recorded Come On, Let's Go, they released it to the public. The song was an instant hit. Valance now needed to come up with material for a song that was personal, so he took inspiration from his own life. Valance started dating a girl named Donna when he was 16. The two were high school sweethearts and everyone thought they were a power couple. Sadly, their relationship wasn't so simple. It wasn't a problem with her, it was her father. There was something about Valance that he didn't like. Donna's father had a problem with Valance's background. What he didn't understand was that Donna had chosen Valance as a boyfriend because he was such a good guy. Valance didn't drink or swear, and Dad, if he'd given him a chance, probably would have loved Richie. Sadly, Richie just couldn't catch a break with Donna's father, but that only made his daughter want Valance even more. Donna was a headstrong young woman. She wasn't afraid of her father, so she ignored her father's wishes and dated Richie anyway, only she made him keep it a secret. Valance obviously wasn't happy with the situation, but it did help him write a hit song. Donna probably thought she had a normal boyfriend, but he was about to show her how special he really was. Valance wrote the hit song Donna about his sweetheart, but before he let the public hear it, he wanted the real Donna to have a listen. He called her on the phone and gave her a very private sneak preview of the song. She later admitted that the song made her cry. What she didn't understand was that this wasn't a song just for her. At the time, she had no idea that Valance was recording Donna and making plans to release it to the world. Neither of them had any idea the effect this song would have. Now that he had a great personal song, Valance needed a song for the B-side of his record. Valance had been toying with the idea of a rock and roll version of a traditional Mexican song he knew from his childhood, La Bamba. He was nervous about releasing it, though, for fear that he might offend his Mexican fans. Of course, the Mexican song that Valance wanted to record had Spanish lyrics. The thing was, Valance didn't speak any Spanish. But drawing on his family, Valance got his mother's relatives to teach him the words he needed to know to record the song. So now Donna had La Bamba as a B-side. Next, Valance and Keane had to wait and see if America would accept a rock and roll song that wasn't in English. Neither of them expected what happened next. The disc with Donna on one side and La Bamba on the other went on to sell more than 1 million copies. Richie Valance was quickly becoming a rock and roll star. Valance was also becoming more and more sure that his future was in music, so he made a huge decision. He quit high school. This decision would also have a very significant effect on his personal life. When he walked away from his education, Valance was also walking away from his girlfriend, Donna. Valance's plan was to marry Donna one day, but first he had to pursue his dream of becoming a rock superstar. Valance may have had a few hit songs on the radio, but he still had to show America that he could do a live performance. One of Valance's first performances was on Dick Clark's American Bandstand. On the show, Valance performed Come On Let's Go and earned a huge legion of fans. Clearly, Valance was now in the big leagues, but his next performance would bring him closer to home. A high school just outside Los Angeles somehow managed to lure both Valance and singing star Sam Cooke to their event, which they called the Teen Canteen Fundraiser. While the show itself didn't go down in history, there was something very eerie about it. In a short time span, both performers would lose their lives in unnatural circumstances. Richie Valance would die in an infamous plane crash, and Sam Cooke would die under suspicious circumstances several years later in a Los Angeles motel. In 1959, Valance's manager booked him onto something called the Winter Dance Party Tour, which would be a 24-day tour of the American Midwest. The 17-year-old Valance was so sure that the tour would be a success that he decided to buy a house, depositing a $1,000 down payment before he left for the tour. But Valance would soon realize that there were two things very wrong with this tour. The first problem with the tour was with its geography. You see, the person responsible for booking the cities didn't seem to own a map and managed to book the cities so far apart that it meant driving for hours in between gigs. The second problem was something even worse. It also happened to be one of the coldest winters in many years. So now we have a busload of popular musicians crisscrossing the Midwest for hours on end in extremely cold temperatures. While this may not be exactly a recipe for disaster, a disaster is what happened. Buddy Holly was probably the biggest star on the tour, and he found the cold temperatures and long bus rides unbearable. Partway through the tour, a fed-up Holly booked a private plane to get to their next gig, but there was only room for 3 passengers on board. Holly handpicked the tour members he'd take on the plane, which meant Valance, the kid on the tour, would be stuck once again sitting on a frozen bus. Most likely, Valance was secretly relieved. You see, he had a very valid reason for staying away from planes. Back in 1957, Valance had to miss a school day at his junior high school, but this absence may have saved his life. That same day, a plane crashed into the school and 8 people lost their lives, while 75 more sustained injuries. Then, just a few months later, another plane crashed near Valance's home. This one landed on a house and everyone on board perished. This created in Valance an intense fear of flying, which makes what happened next all the more tragic. Buddy Holly planned to board the small plane with 2 members of his band after their concert in Clear Lake, Iowa. The show was a hit, and Valance, maybe still riding high from a great concert, did something out of character. He asked one of the guys for his seat on the plane. They let a coin toss decide their fate, and Valance won. It was 1:30 in the morning when Valance, Holly, and J.P. Richardson, aka the Big Bopper, reached the snowy airport. When they got in the small plane, there in the pilot's seat was 21-year-old Roger Peterson. He was young, really young for a pilot. Legally, Peterson was 100% certified to fly the plane, but there was something quite important he did not have the experience to do. Peterson was only certified for flying in circumstances where he could actually see where he was going. The flight with Valance was in the dark and with heavy snowfall. With these conditions, Peterson would have to rely solely on his controls. Unbeknownst to Valance, 9 months before this day, Peterson had failed a practical exam for doing this very thing. So there was Valance, terrified of flying and about to fly with an inexperienced pilot in bad weather and in almost complete darkness. The plane carrying Valance, Holly, and Richardson tragically crashed not long after takeoff. Later, they said it was due to bad weather and pilot error. The next morning, at around 9 a.m., authorities found the plane, which had come to rest on a barbed wire fence, and smashed into the shape of a ball. The pilot's body was still in his seat, but not everyone was there. Strangely, there was no sign of Valance, Holly, or Richardson. The plane's impact with the ground threw the musicians clear out of the wreckage. In the hours before they found the plane, the 3 bodies had frozen solid. The tour manager had the grisly job of identifying them only by their clothes. 3 musicians lost their lives that day, but Valance's career would strangely continue to soar. Once reality had set in, his fans mobilized and tried to quench their thirst for absolutely any more recordings of their rock and roll hero. Valance's manager, Keane, suddenly remembered that a recording existed, and he was sure it was the only recording of Valance singing live in front of an audience. He just had to get his hands on it. Back when Valance was first finding success as a musician, he got a call to perform at his old junior high school. During the concert, someone decided to record Valance using a very rudimentary tape recorder. Keane remembered that recording, found it, and released it as part of a live side of a posthumously released album. Valance's fans were getting used to the fact that they would never see their idol again. They then realized that they would have one last chance. You see, just before the tragic plane crash, Valance had made a brief appearance in a movie. This was Go Johnny Go, where Valance performed his song Oh My Head. The film premiered just a few months after the accident. His fans came out in droves. If the audience listened closely to the lyrics, however, they would notice a chilling coincidence. One line in Oh My Head has Valance singing about there being no more Peggy Sue. Everyone would recognize that this was a reference to Buddy Holly's hit song. The same guy who'd lost his life on that fateful flight. There really would be no more Peggy Sue. The eerie coincidences didn't stop there. In 1959, Tommy D wrote a tribute song called The Three Stars about Valance, Holly, Richardson, and the crash that took their lives. Later, Eddie Cochran, who had appeared in Go Johnny Go with Valance, recorded his own version of the song. In a strange twist of fate, Cochran too lost his life at an early age. The 21-year-old was in a car crash on the way to the airport. Every time Valance's name is in jeopardy of fading to obscurity, something seems to happen to revive it. They say that time heals all wounds, but Richie's fans seemed unable to get over their loss. In 1987, producer Taylor Hackford thought there was enough interest in Valance to make a movie about his short life and career. He sent his associate producer out to find Valance's family to see what they thought. The strange thing was, it was as if the family had vanished into thin air. The associate producer's search for the family took 2.5 years. He was likely ready to give up when he finally found them. In an ironic twist, they were now living just a 15-minute drive from Hackford's home. Now he had to ask them a delicate question. Would they want their son's tragic life be the subject of a film? The Valenzuela family certainly was on board with La Bamba, and especially with the man they cast as Valance. This was Lou Diamond Phillips, and while preparing for the role, he got very close to the Valenzuelas. When it came time to shoot the scene with the plane crash, most of the Valenzuela family decided to stay away. Valance's sister did attend the filming that day and found it very emotional. When Phillips had to get on the plane, she begged him not to get on. She was sure it would crash. Clearly, the Valenzuela family needed closure. Well, they were about to get it. Of course, Valance's loved ones suffered an incredible loss, and the families of Holly and Richardson as well. The three families did not meet until an event in 1988 brought them all together. They erected a memorial statue that commemorated the tragic accident. Here, the families of all three entertainers and also the pilot's family met for the first time. Don McLean's song American Pie cemented the line "The day the music died" into our popular culture forever. McLean saw something in this terrible tragedy and wanted to make some sense of it. In 1990, Valance received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Then in 1993, the Postal Service came out with his image on a stamp. Supporters of the three who passed on that tragic flight headed to the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. Instead of a sad memorial, they decided to do a concert. This soon became an annual event, and in 2009, they reached a milestone. They did a special show on the 50th anniversary of the night we lost Valance, Holly, and Richardson. In Valance's short time in the spotlight, he had done something few musicians have accomplished. With Donna and La Bamba, he had that very rare two-sided hit. Though his career was short-lived, Valance was a part of the beginning of rock and roll in America, and his songs can still be heard all over the globe today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe.